The most common question we get from coaches as it relates to program design is, how do I choose appropriate exercise selection, or what exercises do I choose for my client? So in this video, I'm going to break down a systematic way to choose exercises based on your client's capabilities. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take the thousands of exercises that you could do, and we're going to narrow it down to the exercises that you should do with your clients based on their goals and their capabilities. If you are one of these coaches that asks this question, what exercises should I use? You are definitely not alone. Most coaches, if not all coaches, have asked themselves or others that question. And it's actually what led me to building this matrix, just building something that's objective and that you can kind of put your hands around, that gives you kind of a nudge to say, like, use this type of exercise, use that type of exercise. But I do want to say that the intention of this matrix is to give you that nudge and to almost just use it as training wheels until it becomes second nature. So the goal of this isn't to give you this resource and say, like, every time you design a training program for the next 2 decades, you should use this. That's not the intention. The intention is just to teach you to be autonomous in your exercise selection. Before we get into the framework, let's talk about this concept called the contraction continuum. Okay, and this is what we teach our coaches to prescribe against in terms of how to prescribe resistance training based on where your client is, and that's training age, and that's capabilities and experience. Okay, so the things that we talk about in this contraction continuum are motor control, strength endurance, and max contractions. So step number 1 is to acquire motor control with your clients in all 6 movement patterns. So that is the squat, the bend, the push, the pull, the lunge, and the core patterns. So that's step number 1. Just stay there and work on learning how to move appropriately before you move on to anything else. Once you check the box there, now we can move to step 2. Step 2 is training strength endurance across all patterns. So what is strength endurance? Strength endurance is essentially just challenging motor control with faster movements and contractions and more repetitions. Okay, so an example of motor control could be a goblet squat at 3 seconds down, hold for 1 second, come up for 1 to 2 seconds, take a breath, go back down. You might do that for 6 to 8 reps with that high time under tension per rep. But an example of strength endurance might be that same exercise, the goblet squat, and you might see yourself doing 15 to 25 reps, but you're going at 2 seconds down, 0 seconds in the hole, exploding up, a really quick breath and right back down. So there's going to be a difference in terms of how you prescribe those contractions. But that's step 1 and 2. Step 1, prescribe and acquire motor control across all patterns. And then step number 2 is train strength endurance. And then finally, step number 3 is going to be train maximum contractions. What are maximum contractions? You're just lifting heavy weight. Okay, so if we're doing goblet squats in the first 2 cycles or the first 2 sections as we move to max contractions has us doing really challenging, maybe back squats or front squats or something like that, more compound. So you're just building the tough triples, tough doubles, tough singles, but you're not just building to build, you're building to express. Okay, you've already have the prerequisites and you can move effectively in the squat pattern. You've trained strength endurance, you have the endurance. So you've challenged that pattern, you challenge motor control of that pattern, and now you're ready to actually express those tough contractions in that squat pattern. So that's where the framework begins. We have to understand where clients are in motor control, strength endurance, and max contractions. So the question that you're probably asking is, how do I know where my clients are in terms of motor control, strength endurance, and max contractions? So in our platform, CoachRx, we make this really simple. Step number 1, you just take your clients through pattern-based assessments, and these pattern-based assessments will inform you and tell you exactly where each one of your clients sit in each one of these patterns. Okay, now with this continuum in mind, let's look at the exercise selection matrix. There are 3 simple steps involved in this matrix. Step number 1 is identify where your client sits on the contraction continuum. Step number 2, choose the exercises that are within their capabilities and that are aligned with their goals. And then finally, step number 3, input exercises into your program design platform. So the matrix has a key at the bottom of the PDF. So this key just lays out numbers, okay? So number 1 means train motor control. So choose exercises from learn. Number 2, train motor control or strength endurance. Choose exercises from learn and grow. Assess strength endurance metrics. Step number 3, train motor control, strength endurance, or max contractions. Choose exercises from learn, grow, and express, and assess max contraction metrics. Number 4, train max contractions to improve structural balance. Choose exercises from express. And then finally, number 5, explore all types of contractions and exercises in the pattern. Okay, so that key will make more sense here in a second as we go from left to right in the matrix. But just understand, as you go from left to right and you see these numbers, you're just gonna go right down to that key and you're just gonna say, okay, I'm gonna train these contractions. So maybe it's motor control. So I'm gonna go to the right, I'm gonna choose exercises from learn, and those exercise characteristics are what's going to make up my program design for my client within that pattern. Okay, now let's take a look at the matrix and kind of go from left to right in the matrix. Okay, so the matrix flows from left to right. Within step 1, we are identifying where we are by pattern. So let's use the squat pattern as an example. So step number 1 is going to be identify. Okay, so motor control, if that equals yes, then I go down to 2, and that tells me to train motor control or strength endurance and to choose exercises from learn and grow and assess strength endurance metrics. Okay, so strength endurance, if that equals yes, then that would be a 3. And if that's a 3, that tells me to train motor control, strength endurance, or max contractions, choose exercises from learn, grow, and express, and assess max contraction metrics. Max contractions, if that equals no, that would bring me over to 4. Okay, so if I'm brought over to 4, I'm gonna go down, and that's gonna tell me to train max contractions to improve structural balance and choose exercises from express. Okay, so that's where I land in the squat pattern. So I just looked at it from motor control to strength endurance to max contraction. So I was a yes on motor control, I was a yes on strength endurance, and then I was a no on max contractions. Okay, so now I'm just gonna continue to move along. Okay, so step 2, I'm going to choose. So I'm going to choose exercises from express while keeping in mind why I was told why to do that. Okay, so since the standard I did was a body weight back squat, or the standard that I failed was a body weight back squat, the goal is simple. The goal is to increase my back squat. So when I look at the flow chart and it tells me to choose compound exercises in the squat pattern, I can even more individualize that for myself because I know what my specific goal is. If my goal is to increase the back squat, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to choose the back squat and I'm going to build a program around the back squat. Okay, so use the matrix as a guide, but you have to kind of step in with logic and add some more personalization on top of it as well. And then finally, step 3, I'm going to simply input these exercises into the platform. Okay, I know that was a lot, but when you look at it from left to right, from a matrix standpoint, it's pretty easy. If it's yes, I do this. If it's no, I do that, and I continue to go. And as I go further to the right, from step 1 to step 2, I get exercise characteristics, okay? So the intention is when you get stuck by pattern, just use this by pattern because you'll see in the matrix, everything is separated by pattern, okay? So you're gonna go through this matrix from left to right for each individual pattern, and then you're gonna end up with a list of exercise characteristics per pattern, and it's as simple as that. That's what your training program should be based on your client's capabilities. So I hope this framework was helpful or beneficial in understanding what are the exercises I could versus should do. And remember that the goal or the intention here was to kind of just give you nudges, okay? The goal isn't to make this automated and just be like, step 1, I go to 2, and then I use this exercise. You're still gonna have to use some discernment, and you're still gonna have to use the information that you have and the context that you have with your client that no matrix can really understand the way that you, their coach, can understand. So use this as those quote unquote training wheels, and use it as much as you need it until you don't need it anymore, because the goal is to kind of go through this and get enough reps where you're just like, oh, okay, if I need to acquire motor control, here are the exercises I generally use in this pattern, and same for strength endurance and same for max contractions. If you want to take a deeper dive into these ideas and kind of extend it into energy systems training as well, we do have a playlist in our platform LearnRx where we actually walk through how do we take this data and how does it inform our design. And that's it. I appreciate your guys' time. I appreciate you hanging on with me all the way to the end of this video, and I hope it was beneficial to you. And like I said, if you want to take a deeper dive, just head into LearnRx. And if you have any questions, just feel free to drop them in the comments below.